Hi, you can see my little working den in a little bit more detail here. The Dreamcatcher is slightly taken away from the insulation behind, and the rubbish bag I have hanging up. But I've been talking through on the live streams my decision for making certain changes. They're not radical in that sense, but to where I was before, they're radical. So in other words, I'm trying to make some really simple, positive changes to my life. But where I was in that moment to make these changes to myself was radical. And by being radical, all that really means is hard work for me. But it made sense. It was feasible in the first instance. I'm open, not open, what's the word, how would I describe it? I'm at the hands of the universe, whether it allows for this to stick or for how long it allows for this to stick, before consciousness folds again. I'm going to be off camera. I'm just putting some kindling on the stove, but I'm just there, and I can speak at the same time, and I won't be too long. So with those radical changes, I was tested again yesterday, and if I'm honest, the past 4 days have been a huge battle. And yesterday was just another one. It's got that Mercury retrograde amplification of my mental health energy about it, and it's not a pleasant energy at all, not a pleasant place to be. But the whole mindset of the change is such that I don't allow that to get to me in essence. And where I don't allow that to get to me, and when I first, it's basically an affirmation to life. And I first tried this affirmation a few years ago. So not letting life get to me in essence. And I first tried this affirmation to life a few years ago. This is when I where life put it in front of me and said, this is the way to be. And I managed to do it at the time. Things were very difficult at the time. They weren't easy. But the depression at the time of my life then was a more proactive approach to depression. So it wasn't really like the density, the croakiness of the voice that depression does, the bags under the eyes and everything else that goes along with the actual feeling of depression. Hadn't really set in. Not that it's Not that I'm allowing it to really get to that place at the moment, so it's just getting really... Not that I'm doing my best not to allow it to get to that place at the moment, but I'm sure you can see, if you rewind back to at least when I made these live streams, started making these live streams, my persona, my approach to life, I'm sure you'll be able to see the difference in me in terms of how the depression has taken hold as life has become more challenging. So now I'm trying to implement that affirmation to life, that change from a place of the physical limitations of depression. Whereas before I didn't have that. Before I was in a certain level, a case of momentum, forwards, lightness. And I made these decisions and it was easy to implement. Now, things are more challenging. My day-to-day experience of life is a lot more shocking. And I've got the depression on my shoulders too. And the past 4 days have been like a real crazy, horrible energy. When Mercury retrograde comes knocking, if I'm not in the right place with my mental health and life, the challenge of the situation is really hard. And it's Mercury retrograde now, so I've got that on top of the depression, and it's really taken an extra hit to the horribleness of my life in the first instance. But I made this decision just before Mercury retrograde hit. So I was putting energy this way, and I was prepared. Well, I wouldn't say I was prepared for Mercury retrograde, but I was at least when I realised it was Mercury retrograde, I just got on, which before I would have got knocked back just from the knowledge that it's Mercury retrograde without any effects of it. So I've just been getting on. And where I was when I made this decision was like right at the bottom. I don't think I've ever been in a worse place in my life, like down and beaten by life. Here comes the cleanse with the smoke. And I've been experiencing some of the hardest days of my life in the past few days. But it's begun to sink in where I've been trying to do this now for two to 3 weeks. Not let stuff get to me, and it's in the simplest understanding of what I'm trying to do. It's really hard to wake up each day, face my problems, and recap the day before, recap all the struggles I went through, recap the pain and the shock and everything else, and just say, okay, just say okay, nothing more. Just acknowledge it, see it for everything it was, but not have an emotional reaction to it. And I've been forgetting that. So in other words, where I wake up each day and I recap how bad it was before, my initial response is to hold to the emotion of that on some level, because I don't feel safe to life. So in other words, it's like, imagine you're depressed. That is being life putting you in that place. For whatever reason you might get depressed, life has put you in that place, and it's taken time. And if you recap the past 3 months, 6 months, 2 years, it might be a week that it's taken to get you depressed, but if you recap back, life has put you there. And there's a certain energy to that. There's a certain realness to that. And with that realness, it's not easy to just say, right, let's just be happy today. Life will keep putting you back in that place unless you do it in the right way. But this is what the way I experience it. I hope others' experiences are different. And to say, within the depths of that depression, if it's not done with a clear enough mind to the situation, and I just say, I can't take depression anymore. I can't take depression. Let's be happy. Imagine you try and make yourself light-hearted, and then life knocks you down for whatever reason. Once you make that decision, in that moment you remember the past 6 months, 2 years, the past week, whatever's put you in that depression in the first place. But because I've done this in the right way to myself, the way I live, when that's happened, and I'm there and I'm like, I can't get past this. I can't be light-hearted. My life is my life. I am depressed. I can't just be happy. I can't just let it go, not let it get to me. It's impossible. And I have a little think, and I'm like, no, actually, I have to. And I've done that, 4, 5 times, 6 times, God knows how many, probably every day. I've had to do that, or there and thereabouts. And today I've woken up and I had, where I normally smoke tobacco, I had some of the CBD hemp yesterday. And I've woken up today and things haven't gone the way I want. Things are still challenging. But the CBD hemp must still be having its effects. And I'm able to make the decision today. What do you want to do, Andreas? Do you want to do the same thing you've done the 2 weeks before? So it's given me that little bit of space. Do you want to do the same thing you've done 2 weeks before and be real with how bad things are? really, really contemplate how bad yesterday was, really find the lessons, really not let yourself be light-hearted again. So that's the question, but the instant knowing, not I don't have to think about it, is a case of it's a case of because I've done it over the past 2 weeks numerous times, and I know my situation. I'm able to say, right, let's do it again, without, well, no, I'm not, it's not about saying, it's about knowing, let's just do it again. Let's take advantage of this lightness, this space, and go again. So I've had knockbacks, I've had setbacks, step backs, and I'm trying to just give it the best chance I have to. What it was with this change, with this affirmation to life, with this not letting things get to me, energy, I realised the other day when I was reflecting on how bad things were, trying to find answers, solutions, I realised that the whole point of it is so that I can have that mental awareness of the situation, not to let it get to me. Be the primary mentality to life, I guess. That's what you would say. So in other words, instead of letting the situation guide my emotions, let that decision of what I've decided upon, not to let stuff get to me, be the primary controller to my emotional state. I'm going to be sitting down there. And I realised that I don't know how to find that lightness. I don't know how to I know what I'm trying to do. I know what I need to do in my life. Sorry, won't be a sec. But I wasn't sure how to find that lightness. And what happened was last night, where I had some of that CBD hemp in that moment, I just allowed myself to relax because the pain of my life was just too much. The pain of the day on every level was just too much. And in that place, I did what I do most of the time. I surrendered to spirituality, the spiritual downloads. It was actually quite synergistic the way it happened. I was trying to deal with a very dense, serious contributing factor to all of my problems. It's not. I've got so many problems that I'm not quite sure what the crux is, what the best way to work at it is, but I have an idea. And that idea was open to discussion yesterday. And nothing was really said, if I'm honest, in that discussion. I just, in truth, responded what I know, and I heard of the advice and guidance from the other individual. It was my uncle again, Costa. And I heard what the guidance that he had to offer, and it was clear that what was needed to do, be done to deal with it. And what was needed to be done to deal with it wasn't really dealing with it. It was like, I can't deal with whatever's going on. I can't deal with that problem at its core like I would like. I can't make that problem go away. But what I can do is be proactive, be honest with that problem, and just calm the nerves. And it was a quick discussion yesterday. We touched on that very lightly, and I reaffirmed what I just expressed now. And that was before I had the CBD, and thereafter I had the hemp. And I came back, and it's just like relaxing. So in other words, I've taken on all the stresses from life. And when I relax, where I go in terms of spirituality seems to happen by itself. It's not like I guide it. And spontaneously, it went in the direction of that problem. And on a spiritual level, I got answers. I got reasons. I got that situation from a spiritual perspective. Now, my modus operandi to life is to always act grounded in the first instance. And however tantalizing spirituality might get or seem, it's to not act upon it unless the situation and circumstances appropriate. Now, where I was in that moment was like at the bottom of the bottom. Yesterday was one of the worst days of my life. As I say, every day's at the moment, it's just like a gradual stepping down of my expectation of life, because it's like almost every day is the worst day of my life. But that's the reality for myself. Whether it's true or not, that's what's in my head. That's how I'm experiencing it. And to have expected myself that I would ever find an appropriate spiritual reason that I could appropriately act upon, and I'll clarify what I'm trying to say in a second, in that density was incomprehensible to me. It was like, that would never happen. I'd never, if I'm very, very careful, really being as conscious as possible when and where to act on spiritual matter, I normally need a little bit of space in my life. I need a little bit of lightness in my life. I need a bit of safety and security. And the density is just not the place to act on spiritual ideas. But anyway, last night I was thinking of, my mind went in this direction. Of the problem. Where it went in the direction of the problem, it was presented with a very convincing argument of reason and support. And there's two things to this. The first one is it's so convincing to everything I'm experiencing in my life. It's almost like, you know what? I really can't say if that spiritual idea is true or not. But in everything that life presents to me, all the interactions I've had over the past year, a few years of my life, it really, really makes sense. And then in the moment, I know I need that lightness to my life. I need that change from life being the governor to my emotional state, to me deciding upon not letting things get to me, and my mind being the governor of my emotional state, which will allow for a lightness, which will allow for service to life and where I see I need to go with my life. And it will allow for that. And this morning I was like ready to contemplate how bad things yesterday were again. And I realised I didn't need to. I realised and what's happening at the moment is me really just double checking, because that's half what these live streams are for, to clear my mind out loud where I can't think in my head at times. Sorry, I'm just trying to put my dinner on at the same time. It's a bit difficult when you're cooking on the stove and you're using a broken pot. And you found a really, really weird way to steel cook with a broken pot on a hot stove. I think that should work. So I was saying, I basically realised and I'm just going to take a second just to figure out how to structure what I'm going to say. I realised what the spiritual insights said. In other words, what they suggested to my life going forward as like an action plan was lightness to a certain extent, was a easing. It was a reason to easing stress and pressure and pain and discomfort. By saying to myself on some level, look, this is where you're at, Andreas, in terms of what you need to do for the future. And that's the mindset to have in the present moment. That's the way forward in the present moment. Serious energy, it's a serious tone, it's a work-like mentality. But in the present moment, I just need to do a few basic self-care things in my life. And with the decision that I've made, it's so serious, and it's one of work mentality to being of service to the world. And where I was so depressed and stressed in the present moment, it was really hard to break out of that and see a reason to really, on a mental level, ease and allow myself to truly absorb into that self-care mentality. It was like I'm really trying to reprogram decades, centuries in advance in the worst possible place. And this spiritual support idea allows for that to happen. And ultimately, that's the most important thing. So I guess as a result of this live stream, what I need to do as well is to affirm to myself again, well, not again, it's affirm to myself what we just literally said, that is the most important thing. Being there of service to the world in the long run. Allowing myself to be able to be there of service to the world in the long run. I'm getting there from the absolute bottom. And if the action in the immediate is one of needing to apply a certain level of self-care to myself, and it's difficult because of the parameters of the situation, i.e. being at the bottom, i.e. needing to go beyond myself and be selfless to a certain extent. It was the hardest thing to fight my way there. This spiritual possibility allows for that to happen. So I go ahead. I don't know if that spiritual possibility, that spiritual idea is true on any level, or if it is true on some level, how much and exactly what. But in essence, the action in the first moment is appropriate and what's needed to get myself to the longer term goal. So I go forward, and the change is I'm allowing myself to focus on that self-care with a different level of pressure. Because before, the pressure was like, write and dress, be of service to the world. Now, allow self-care. And you go into that place of needing to apply self-care with the pressure of being there for the world. And it's a near impossibility, because you're doing something for yourself, you're doing something greedy. And that's always at the back of your mind. So the way the spiritual support is, I'm allowing it to affect my mindset, is that I'm saying, well, you know what? This world is spiritual. I don't need to prove anything to myself there. I know that. And you want to tell me this really, really convincing spiritual idea is saying to me in the moment, no, you've got to apply self-care for the future, for the world. It takes away that greed of doing that for yourself. And that takes away a lot of pressure. I know if not today, tomorrow, the day after that, I'll get knocked down again. So I just have to remember, I guess, I need to remember one, the seriousness of the situation, never to forget that. And really to also remember how absolutely absurd things have got. And to remember the world is spiritual. And to remember how convincing this story is. And when I find myself in that place next, where the depression of the past 6 months, 2 years, my whole life comes flooding back. That will be the change. I don't know how it will go. That's my truthful assessment. I don't know quite how getting myself out of it will go. But at the moment, I've got the remnants of the space from the CBD hemp. But really, I need to be able to do it on my own accord without external supports. That's just where my life will get to one day anyway. That's what life has shown me. So when I find myself in that place next, the challenge, I might need to take the CBD hemp a few more times. But the challenge is an inevitable one of getting myself out of that space, or at least using the CBD hemp to transition myself into that place of being able to find that clarity of mind to the situation, to say, right, today was the most challenging day of my life again. It's the worst day of my life again. I don't have the energy to do this again. And to know that it's okay. The difference in that top moment will be that knowing it's okay, given everything, to apply that self-care. And letting that be the difference. So there's some steps back, some steps forward. And onto the same situation again with a little bit more awareness, a little bit more consciousness, a little bit of support in a really weird way. And allowing for the change that I see appropriate to my life to happen as quickly as possible, so I can be there for us all as quickly as possible, as much as possible. That's woken me up a little bit, snuck me out of the more mellowing aspects of the CBD hemp back into a more work-like place, which is good, which is how to use an external crutch, an external support. So thank you for being with me on today's journey of exploration. Let's all do what makes sense. Let's all do what makes sense. I hope love guides the way. Within that, those decisions that get brought to mind where senses are played. It's hard for all of us. We all need to live. We all need to be alive to live. And I guess that's where answers come from.